Joan Smith, a resident of Los Angeles, rushed out of a Texas home screaming. Moments later, she fainted on the front lawn. No one envisaged the incident will open dark secrets and web of lies. Neighbors reported seeing her entering the home alone. Minutes later, she was outside screaming, like she had seen a ghost. Neighbors across the street said they hadn't seen anyone in that house for 2 months, until it became active 2 days prior. A man ran to the scene, checked her pulse, and quickly dialed 911. In less than 5 minutes, an ambulance and a police patrol car pulled up in front of the house. As medics lifted her onto a stretcher, a nurse whispered, "Can you hear me?" Joan briefly opened her eyes, then shut them suddenly, screamed again as though terrified, and passed out once more. What could have caused Joan to collapse? A police officer entered the house to investigate. The place looked messy and untidy everywhere except for the living room. It appeared slightly cleaner than the rest. The neighbor who called 911 explained that the house had only shown signs of activity 2 days ago. The lawn was suddenly mowed, and the house seemed to have been cleaned. Before that, no one had been seen there for more than 2 months. There were whispers the property was sold after the previous owner passed on. The ambulance rushed Joan to a nearby hospital, but her pulse grew weaker. Once there, detectives Rob and Peter were assigned to determine what had happened to her. They returned to the house to search for clues, but found nothing suspicious, except the kitchen and 3 bedrooms were dusty and dirty, showing no signs of use. Besides the garage and living room, the entire house was in disarray. Meanwhile, Detective Peter stayed at Joan's bedside, waiting for her to wake up and explain what had happened. An ID card found in her bag identified her as Mrs. Joan Smith, a nurse. Other documents revealed she is a single mother of 2 and divorced for the past 2 years. Rob looked into her marriage and discovered she was married to Dr. Graham Smith for 12 years. Together, they had 2 children, a boy and a girl. When they tried to contact Dr. Graham, Rob learned he had died suddenly 2 weeks earlier. He was buried 4 days before the incident at the house with Joan. Detective Rob wondered if Joan attended the funeral, and what about the children? Where are they? Looking into her flight records, he discovered she had traveled to Houston with 2 teenage children earlier that day. Where were the children? He thought aloud. He contacted the hospital, where Joan worked as a surgical nurse, assistant in plastic surgery. He was told she was doing well financially. He found out her ex-husband, now deceased, was ordered to pay her more than $2 million in divorce settlement. Strangely, 2 months after the settlement, he died mysteriously in his sleep. Rob called Peter, who was still at the hospital by Joan's side, waiting to be the first to speak with her. Rob told his partner everything he had uncovered in the past hours. It was clear Joan had come to meet someone at that house, and something had gone terribly wrong. Was she there with her kids? According to neighbors, aside from the lawn crew and an older man in his late 50s, no one else had been seen entering or leaving the house. They confirmed Joan entered the home alone. No fingerprints were found in the house. Rob was still discussing findings with Peter when Joan suddenly woke up, screaming the names of her children. Graham, Lindsay. Nurses rushed to her side and sedated her with a mild injection to calm her down. After 10 minutes, she was ready to talk. Peter pulled out a notepad. "Can you tell me what happened in that house?" he asked. Her lips parted slightly. "I was there to get my kids, but I didn't find them. His mother and sister, who babysit my kids, are also missing." "Your children were in the house with whose mother?" Peter asked calmly. "They were with Fred's mom." "Okay," Peter said. "Who is Fred?" Joan managed to sit up. "We met online a year ago," she explained. "We had been talking ever since. After I got the divorce money, I told him about it, and he said we should finally meet." "So what happened?" Pete asked. "When I flew into Houston, we went straight to that house. I met his mom and sister. They were all sitting in the living room when we arrived. After a few minutes, Fred said we should go to the hotel he had booked, so we could have our privacy." "And then what happened next?" Peter pressed. "Yes, we went to the Riverdale Hotel and checked into a room. Everything seemed fine. He kissed me, and we started to settle in. Then his phone rang. He told me it was his business partner. Do you know what kind of business he was in? Pete asked. He said he was an investment banker. I even gave him $900,000 to invest for me and my kids in trust. Rob, who had walked in while she was talking, cut in sharply. You did what? I invested it in trust, Joan said. He had invested $50,000 for me about 6 months ago, and he sent me the returns after it matured. I felt confident about investing more. She opened her bag and pulled out some papers. Both detectives examined them and immediately recognized they were fraudulent, but the bigger question remained. Where were her children? So what happened next? Rob asked. Yes, Joan continued. His phone rang again. He said it was an emergency. He stepped into the corridor. I heard him talking for a while, but then, nothing. When I went out to look, he was gone. I asked at the reception desk about Fred. They said he had left 30 minutes earlier, so I hurried to his family's home. But when I got there, I couldn't find my kids, his sister, or his mom. It was like they had vanished. Did you call his phone number? Pete asked. I did. On the way there, Joan replied. At first it rang, but by the time I arrived at the house the phone had stopped ringing. The place was completely empty. I checked the rooms and the kitchen. She continued. It was obvious no one had been there for a long time. Everything was dusty and unkept. Then I screamed and blacked out. Can you tell us where you first met Fred? Rob asked. We met online. This was the first time we met in person. And you brought your kids along. Why? Rob pressed. Because he asked me to. Rob and Peter stepped outside, uncertain how to proceed. If the man had only taken Joan's money, it would have been a clear case of fraud. But with the disappearance of her children, it has become a case of fraud and kidnapping. But why would he do that? Rob asked. No idea. They returned and told her what they suspected, but something didn't add up. Do you have a photo of him? Pete asked. Yes, Joan said, pulling out a picture she had saved from the internet. The detectives studied it. Something about the photo unsettled them. Please help me, Joan pleaded. I won't survive without my kids. Please help me get them back. She then handed them photos of her children. Rob asked, did you attend your late husband's funeral? No, just the kids did. On her phone, the detectives saw a short video of her children being led away by family members into a waiting car after the funeral. The detectives then visited the hotel and obtained footage of Fred to confirm his identity. They examined Fred's photo again with great interest. He didn't look like a man working alone. Someone is financing him. Looking deeper into his online profile, they realized he had created it just before crossing paths with Joan. Joan, Peter said gently, you've been conned. But the question is, why did he take your kids? Are you sure you're telling us everything? They studied the hotel's surveillance footage. Oddly, Fred appeared to have never left the building. The last sighting was him walking toward the exit after speaking with the receptionist, but instead of leaving, he retraced his steps back toward the lobby. Strange, Rob muttered. He isn't around the hotel, I'm sure of it, but he also seems to know exactly where the blind spots were. It's like he vanished. Something's not right. Rob leaned toward Peter. I think Fred visited this hotel before, and that's how he knew the layout. They decided to review footage from the previous week. After hours of searching, they found nothing conclusive except one detail. A different man had made an inquiry at the desk, which seemed unusual since it could have easily been done online. The man's build and height didn't match Fred, but they made note of him anyway. After Joan was discharged, the detectives took her back to Los Angeles. Since Joan hadn't attended Graham's funeral, the detectives decided not to alert his family too quickly, not to spook them, especially if a member was involved in the crime. When they arrived, Graham's elder sister welcomed them inside. The house was in disarray. Items were scattered, as if someone had been searching for something. She offered them tea, which they politely declined. The detectives introduced themselves, explaining they were investigating a criminal who had attended Graham's funeral. The sister froze at the word criminal. Who else could that be, if not Joan? She snapped. She's the real criminal. She collected a huge settlement, yet she couldn't show her respect by attending his funeral. That man brought her out of the slum. Slum? Pete asked. Yes. The sister replied bitterly. Joan was left for dead before my brother saved her. He cleaned her up, paid for her education. And how did she repay him? By flirting around with other men. Karma will find her soon enough. The detectives exchanged a look, but kept their expressions neutral. It was clear there was deep family resentment, but whether the sister knew about Joan's children or not remained uncertain at the moment. She handed them a small memory chip. Here, take this. Bring it back afterward. We need it for his memorial. Next year, we're planning a presentation to honor my brother and all he did for our family. Rob quickly copied the video onto his device. The sister glared at them. You can arrest Joan too. She's a thief and a liar. Rob thought she was being hysterical, but let her continue. So, what are you searching for? Peter finally asked. I don't know exactly, the sister said, but there's a document my brother left behind. It contains important information about his investments. He had brought it home before his sudden death, Graham's sister said. The coroner claimed it was a heart failure, but I doubt that. The detectives thanked her for the video clip and left. Back in Houston, they watched it. Dozens of people appeared in the footage, but after 2 long hours, they gave up. Nothing useful stood out. Meanwhile, forensics had been dusting the house for fingerprints, but none were found. The tech team checked the neighbors' CCTV systems, but again no clues, no evidence. Rob decided to check the back of the property. That's when he noticed something. The suspects had likely escaped through the garage, which led to a narrow path out to the back streets. Following the path, they searched for surveillance cameras. They were in luck. One camera showed the 2 children being led into a car. They ran the license plate. At first, it seemed like a breakthrough until they realized the plate was registered to a different vehicle in Dallas. At least we're not chasing ghosts anymore, Rob muttered. Whoever this is, they're real and careful. They sent the plate info to traffic control, and within 10 minutes, something came up. One of the women's faces was caught on a traffic camera. Running it through the database, they identified her as a teacher from Los Angeles. But why would a teacher be involved in the disappearance of 2 children? And what was her connection to Fred? Rob dispatched officers to her Los Angeles address. The house was empty. Neighbors reported she had moved out a week earlier. An app went out immediately. Within 2 hours, surveillance showed her boarding a plane to Mexico. She was traveling alone. The kids weren't with her. Interpol was alerted to detain her upon arrival. While that was underway, Rob and Peter revisited the funeral footage. This time, they noticed something they had missed. Kate, sitting in the back row just behind Joan's children. Rob froze the video. Why was she there? Was she trying to familiarize herself with the kids before taking them? Next to Kate sat a younger woman so striking resemblance of Kate. She could have been Kate's daughter. A man sat off to the side, at a distance, but exchanged subtle glances with the women. Something about him felt odd. He seemed to avoid the camera, as if deliberately hiding his face. Peter leaned forward. That man looks familiar, but unless we can enhance the footage, I can't be sure. They called their video tech, but when they contacted the hotel for the original surveillance, they were told the footage had been erased by mistake. That's no mistake, Rob said grimly. That's a cover-up. As if things couldn't get worse, Interpol called back. Kate had died of heart failure aboard the flight to Mexico. Her body was in a morgue. They're watching us, Rob said quietly. They knew we were on to Kate. From that moment, the detectives decided to work in silence. Someone was feeding Fred information. They warned Joan to keep quiet and assigned police to guard her apartment. Shifting focus to the young woman seen beside Kate, they turned to old-fashioned legwork. Rob called in a favor from an FBI friend. The FBI tech analyzed the funeral footage and discovered something chilling. Kate, the young woman, and the man weren't just sitting together. They were communicating in coded hand signals. Translating the signals, he revealed. The man tapped his fingers against the armrest. I think the family faked the funeral. The woman signed back. That can't be true. Rob was stunned. Why would he say Graham wasn't dead? The only way to know is to exhume the body. The FBI contact agreed. These people look like trained operatives, possibly FSB. The Russian security service. Maybe they were non-active assets or deserters. The young woman was tracked to a residence just 2 streets away from Kate's. Inside, the detectives were hit with a stench so strong, Rob covered his nose. "You know what that is," he said grimly. "Human remains." Forensics confirmed the woman had been poisoned shortly after returning home. A half-finished cup of tea sat on the table. "Poisoned," Rob muttered. "By who?" "By someone who didn't want to share," Peter said. "Fred." The detectives considered it. Fred had already eliminated Kate, and now the younger accomplice. Greed. He's silencing loose ends. Their minds drifted back to Graham's sister, who had offered them tea during their visit. "You're thinking what I'm thinking?" Rob asked. Peter nodded. "Yeah, but why would she risk it? They sent her photo to the FBI. The background check revealed nothing. Never been arrested. Who is running the setup?" Pete asked. The detectives quickly arranged to move Joan from her apartment. They didn't think she was in immediate danger if Fred had wanted her dead. Houston would have been the place, but the stakes were too high to gamble. As she was being relocated, Joan sent Rob a message shortly before the divorce payout. "My husband threatened me. He said I would lose everything." "That doesn't make sense," Rob said. Unless he's still alive," Peter finished. They approached the district attorney for approval to exhume Graham's body. It was granted. The family wasn't happy, but they didn't fight it either. That made the detectives uneasy. 10 minutes later, the casket was unearthed. Inside was a body. At first glance, the decomposition looked normal, but forensic specialists noticed something strange while the body decayed unevenly. The face was eerily intact, not bloated like it should have been. The corpse was sent for examination. While they waited, word came from the Mexican border. A man named Chris Godno had been detained trying to cross. He was carrying over $100,000 undeclared cash. More importantly, he was traveling with 2 teenagers, a woman and a baby. The teens were confirmed to be Joan's children. Rob and Peter flew to the border immediately. When Rob saw the man in custody, he recognized him instantly as the man. Making inquiry at the hotel with a close reassemble with the man in the funeral video. "Fred is Chris," Rob said laughing. The piece was starting to fall in place. This man was seen in the video leaving the hotel. Rob told Peter Joan was hiding evidence and misleading them. She knew Fred was for the fake profile and Chris was the real one. But why will she do that? In the interrogation room, Chris sat cuffed to a chair. Rob placed a photo of him as Fred on the table. "Who are you?" Rob asked. Chris turned away. "I don't know him." Peter smirked. "Come on, we've seen you before. At the hotel, at the funeral. You thought you could fool us, but you slipped up." Rob leaned in. "Your picture online is fake. That's why your face never matched any database. It was silicone. That's why your hair looked the same in every single photo. Like you visited the salon every hour." Pete added, "And the investment company to run it doesn't exist. We know you conned Joan out of her money. But why the kids?" Fred sat silent. His eyes were cold, unflinching. Peter taunted him. "You gave yourself away when you killed Kate and the girl who helped you. You didn't want to share, did you?" Fred remained stone-faced. Then Rob's phone buzzed. A forensic call. He answered quietly, then hung up. His expression hardened. "The corpse in the coffin is not Dr. Joan Smith." For the first time, Chris's face changed. "You exhumed the body?" he asked. The detectives smirked. "Joan just gave you up," Rob lied. Chris broke. "Dr. Graham didn't know everything, only part of it. Joan came to me first. She wanted her husband gone. Asked me to set up the dating profile, the investment scam. It was her alibi if he died. After she got her money, she begged me to eliminate him." "Why?" "She already has over $2 million, Rob said. Death insurance. She became greedy. Her son was next of kin. I pretended to go through. Instead I went to Dr. Graham with the truth. He agreed to a new plan." Peter's eyes narrowed. "So you faked his death?" "Yes. The funeral was staged. Kate and Rose were recruited by Joan to monitor everything. She had other plans to take me out. She plotted to have me drugged and killed, making it look like self-defense. She even planned to kill Kate and Rose afterward." "And the kidnapping?" Rob pressed. Leverage, Chris admitted. A backup plan. Joan never saw it coming. Where is Graham Smith now? Rob asked. Chris smirked. In Mexico, waiting. Why didn't you go to the police? He gave a dry laugh. Because Joan's connected, and she has something on me. Were you really taking the children to meet their father? Yes. He slid a piece of paper across the table with a number written on it. The detectives ran it. The contact checked out. He wasn't lying. They uncuffed him and called the police, moving Joan Smith to a safe house. Another cop answered the call. The police escorts had been murdered. It became clear that Joan Smith was unstable and dangerous. Over the police radio, she had heard that the exhumed body wasn't her husband's. That was when she completely snapped. A manhunt was quickly organized to capture her. But in the chaos at the border, Chris vanished, leaving behind the children and a flood of unanswered questions. Who killed Kate and Rose remained a mystery. One thing was clear: Joan and Chris has a lot to answer. For now, they had slipped away.
Thanks for stopping by our channel. Be the first to subscribe and hit the notification bell.